Angel's Grove is separated into 5 factions, each working together to keep their city a safe place. The Tyrannosaurus Monastery is where monks train in both strength and willpower. The Triceratops Spellcasting School is where wizards and sorcerers train in magic and wisdom. The Pterodactyl Archers train in both grace and accuracy. The Mastodon Guild is where warriors are born. And the Sabertooth's Den is where rogues, thieves, and assassins hang out to escape the public eye. But there's one place located in the heart of Angel's Grove where everyone hangs out to drink and participate in friendly fighting competitions. This place is called Ernie's Tavern, and many say it's the best bar this world has to offer. Our party of 5 were here drinking and sparring until the earth started to quake and darkness engulfed the city. This marked the return of the evil dark witch, Rita Repulsa, and her army of demon chimps. Suddenly, the party was teleported to a strange temple. This place looks like it was in ruins, almost like it was here for thousands of years, but the party doesn't recognize it. They're greeted by an automaton with a child's voice holding a stuffed bear. Suddenly, a blue elven face astral projects itself inside a glass tube, introducing himself as Zordon the Wise. He says he founded Angel's Grove with the other Mighty Rangers 10,000 years ago, to protect this world from the demons and their dark magic. He was watching the 5 factions, and handpicked the people whom he believed would be the next Mighty Rangers, and he chose this party to finally put an end to Rita's war. But the party, not only they didn't believe Zordon, but they also feel like he's intentionally leaving out important information. All through their lives they heard of a powerful wizard who was lost to time. The only remnants of his name was the letter Z inscribed on the walls of the Tyrannosaurus Monastery, and the party figured this wizard was just a myth, a legend created to explain why their city exists, not believing he was truly real to begin with. They rejected his offer and they walked out of the temple, and they found themselves in a desert. Suddenly they were ambushed by clay golems. This is what they all trained for. They were fighting them and they had the upper hand for a brief moment. But they were outnumbered, and now they were getting fatigued. Zack even lost a finger while fighting a golem with a blade for a hand, but Billy quickly cast a heal spell, regenerating his lost appendage. The only thing that could save them is to accept the strange wizard's proposal, and with that, magical coins manifested in each of their hands. These coins had images of dinosaurs that their factions were named after, and suddenly each party member was engulfed in bright colorful lights, of red, blue, pink, black, and yellow. And they were given magical armor, robes, and weapons that enhanced their strength, speed, agility, and accuracy. It also gave them memories of the past Mighty Rangers and their fighting skills, allowing them to fight like the ancient warriors that came before them. After transforming into their more powerful selves, they quickly wiped out these golems, and Zordon told them everything about Rita Repulsa and how she was once a ranger herself. But with her demon heritage, greed took over her, and she wanted to take control of the world. Her and Zordon, who was the first red Tyrannosaurus Ranger, fought, and their battle was so intense that it created magical shockwaves that spanned across the globe, wiping out the dinosaurs. Standing on charred remains of what was once a beautiful jungle, Zordon was about to do something he vowed to never do. He was about to take Rita's life. He was standing over her body with his blade to her neck. He raised his sword and quickly swiped down, but he intentionally missed. Rita did unspeakable things, but he couldn't stoop down to her level. So instead, he opened a portal to the Dark Realm, a dimension of shadow and chaos, and banished her there. But right before she was sucked into the portal, she cast a spell on Zordon, and he instantly died on the spot. Eltarians, though, have a strange reaction to death. When an Eltarian dies, their soul astral projects out their bodies, allowing them to live a second life as a spirit. But Rita, who was clinging onto the ground as she was fighting the gravitational pull of the portal, cursed Zordon's soul, leaving him trapped in an interdimensional time warp, meaning fragments of his soul is scattered across multiple dimensions and time. And with the curse being cast, Rita was fully pulled into the Dark Realm, trapped indefinitely. With Zordon's team gravely injured, it was up to his adopted son to rescue him from Rita's curse. His son's name is Alpha, and he was only a child when Rita killed him, which sparked civil war within the original Mighty Rangers. Luckily, Zordon saved Alpha by placing his soul in a mechanical body. Alpha, who studied magic from Zordon, located his soul fragments and teleported them to an enchanted glass tube. Zordon is now able to stay within this dimension, but he cannot leave this tube. The remaining Rangers created the city of Angel's Grove and separated it into 5 factions they have today, training each generation to one day fight Rita Repulsa, but over 10,000 years, the name Zordon and his legacy was lost to time, until today. This party vowed to continue to fight the good fight and protect not only their city, but the world from the evil clutches of Rita Bandora Repulsa. They read the incantation inscribed on the back of their coins, and it roughly translates to, "It's time to metamorphosize," or as the party simply puts it, It's morphin' time! When he say these words, they summon their magical gear and become the new Mighty Rangers. But because this party likes using the word morphin, they changed the party's name into the Mighty Morphin Rangers, and they are now Earth's protectors. Many people from different parts of the world, even those from the distant future, will be inspired by this team and become Rangers themselves one day. Some Rangers might come and go, some might switch sides from evil to good, and some might sacrifice themselves to protect this world. But rest assured, there will always be Rangers ready to save the day. Jason Lee Scott was born in the Tyrannosaurus Monastery where he grew up and trained in martial arts. He had a rival named Tommy Oliver, and they would get into fights practically every day. They always tried to outdo each other, but one day, Tommy went missing. The Tyrannosaurus monks went out looking for him, but after several months, they still had no words on his location. Jason vows to one day get stronger to help locate Tommy. Outside of training, he would frequently hang out at Ernie's Tavern with his friends. Billy, the meek but highly intelligent monk, who would often speak in what the party calls mage babble, where he would use long, scientifically accurate words. Trini, the unassuming rogue who would translate Billy's mage babbles. Zack, the strong knight. He was a powerhouse of the team, but he was also the team's bard, and would use his own made-up fighting style where he mixed stance and martial arts. Kimberly, the party's archer. She can hit a bullseye miles away at a mere glance, and with her graceful speed, she can run across the field and hide in a perch to fire more shots at her enemies, all while remaining elegant as well. This party, just like many others, first met in a tavern. Jason was participating in the annual martial arts competition, and his opponent was a mysterious man clad head to toe in green and gold robes. The announcer introduced him simply as the Dragon. With the first ring of the bell, they fought. Jason does a spin kick, and the Dragon quickly dodges out of the way, and copies Jason's move. Jason dodged the kick, and as the Dragon landed back on the mat, Jason tried to sweep his legs, but his opponent quickly jumps up, dodging that attack as well. Both Jason and the Dragon were evenly matched, almost like the Dragon knew his fighting style perfectly. Jason had a thought. Could this be Tommy? While contemplating this revelation, he was quickly struck in the face and was knocked to the ground. Jason's vision was fuzzy, and with echoing at the referee counting down, the bell rang, and Jason was defeated. He finally came to when he saw a small gnome healing him. The gnome introduced himself as Billy Cranston. Trini walks in holding a small sack of copper coins, noting how easy it was to steal from the two bumbling janitors. Then she sees Jason and quickly tries to hide the coins. Jason lets out an exhausted laugh, saying he can't believe those two janitors used to bully him as a kid. Then he remembers. The guy he was fighting, that has to have been Tommy. He asks too if they saw where his opponent went, but unfortunately they didn't. Billy asked if Tommy was the missing person from the monastery, and Jason answered him. Trini questioned if Jason really knew if it was indeed Tommy, and Jason paused for a second, and he said, without a doubt. They ran out of the tavern. It was dark with street lamps and the crescent moon casting light. Jason said he'll go north and tells Billy to go south and Trini to go east. But Billy doesn't want to separate the party, saying nothing good happens when the party splits up, and Trini agrees. Jason lets out a sigh and says they'll all go north then. While traveling, an arrow is fired at their feet, and a dwarf knight rams into Jason. Jason tells the others to find the archer, while he takes care of the knight. Despite wearing bulky, heavy armor, the knight started dancing. Jason was confused, and the knight, who was half the size of Jason, punched Jason below the belt. Jason, eyes wide, falls to his knees, and the knight clocks Jason across the face. Billy casts a fly spell on him and Trini, and they find the elf hiding in the shadows. Trini says the elf is stealing her stick, and flies in tackling her. The elf quickly tries to grab an arrow, but Trini tauntingly waves the arrows in her face, saying she should have kept a better eye on them, and throws them to the side. Billy asks why they were attacking them, and the elf replied back saying she was hired by two people named Bulk and Skull, saying they've been robbed. Trini, with her palm to her face, mutters under her breath saying she can't believe they noticed her. What a critical failure. And she threw the sack of copper coins to the elf in embarrassment. The elf chuckled, saying she won't be bringing this back to them, saying Bulk and Skull are total jerks, and threw it back to Trini. She just wanted to look like she was doing her job, and will tell Bulk and Skull that the thieves ran off before they could catch them. After this weird introduction, the party formed, and Jason informs the new members about Tommy's disappearance, and thus they start their quest. Billy Cranston didn't have many friends growing up. He spent most of his time in his dorm room at the Triceratops Magic Academy studying. He felt comfort in his books, and because of this, he became a savant in magic. He was so skillful in magic that he even created a flying carriage. But he still felt lonely. Whenever he would try to talk to people, he would go off on these long tangents using big words that common folks would have a hard time understanding. He would try to speak what most people call normally, but he just didn't feel comfortable doing that. He prefers using the longer, more accurate words. Because he's a gnome, he would cast fly on himself every day so he can look taller. And while floating to the city, a woman bumped into him. He didn't think of it much, but he noticed his pocket felt lighter. Then it dawned on him. He was robbed. He looks back and sees the same woman running across the street. Billy hates confrontation, but he needed his money to buy more spell components, so he flies after her. He chases her down an alleyway and politely asks for his money back, but he worded it in a very confusing and technical way. The woman looked confused, then Billy reiterated, but in a more simplistic way. She said she understood him the first time. She was just confused as to why he said it like that to begin with. Billy says that's just how he speaks. Then in excitement, he explains she can understand him. She asks Billy to keep his voice down, and said yes, she can understand him. She introduces herself as Trini, and Billy was going to introduce himself, but she already knows his name because she looked at his ID before he found her. Trini returned his money, and Billy asked why she stole from him. She replied back saying she was training for the Saber-Toothed Rogues Guild, but obviously she needed more training. Then she came up with an idea. If she had a spellcaster with her, maybe she could get away faster if Billy casts a speed spell, then asked Billy if he's up for tagging along with her. Billy was ecstatic. Not only found a friend, but she can also understand his weird mage babble as well. But he wasn't too comfortable with robbing people. Trini says she would be the one doing the robbing. He would be more so her accomplice. Billy hesitated for a bit, then agreed, but they can only rob bad people. Some time passed and they were hanging out at Ernie's Tavern, watching the martial arts competition. While people were distracted with the fight, Trini was sitting around pickpocketing people. Billy was watching the fight and cringing whenever somebody got hurt. The next match started, and it was Jason from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery up against a strange man named the Dragon. Billy watched as these two evenly matched people were fighting and mirroring each other's moves. The fight ends when Jason gets knocked out. Billy couldn't take much more of the violence and dragged Jason out of the ring and cast a heal spell on him, waking him up. Billy didn't realize it at the time, but this was the start of a more phenomenal adventure. Trini Kwan was raised in a Saber-Tooth's den, a safe haven for rogues to relax and escape the public eye. Here, the only rules are no stealing from your fellow rogues, and don't get caught stealing from your fellow rogues. If you're the best of the best, you can join the Saber-Tooth's Rogues Guild, a group of highly trained thieves and assassins. Trini wants to be the best, so she would venture out of the city casually bumping into people, quickly taking items from their pockets. This is how she got by. If she was low on funds, she would walk through the city stealing from people. Occasionally, she would get caught, and has to run and hide before she could get arrested. And if she needs to fight, she can hold her own in a duel. At a young age, her grandfather trained her in martial arts, perfecting the Mantis style. Because she was still training on how not to get caught, she would go into the city in a disguise. She would often dress as a boy, and gave her persona the not-so-clever name, Boy, spelled with an I. She was walking through the city and sees a gnome floating, wearing the uniform for the Triceratops Magic Academy, an elite school where the rich learns how to cast spells. She was thinking this gnome must be loaded. So she did her usual techniques. She bumped into him, quickly taking contents from his pockets, and ran off. She didn't realize it, but the gnome noticed her. As she was running, she counted the coins. It wasn't much, especially for a person going to such an elite school. She read his student ID. His name is Billy Cranston, and she looks back and sees him on her tail. She ran to an alleyway, and it was a dead end, so she got ready for a battle. But the gnome politely stammered his way into asking for his money back. The gnome obviously didn't want to fight, so she gave back his money. She asked why he didn't have much on him, and he replied back saying he was only enrolled in that school because of his high intellect. In fact, his family didn't have much money to begin with. They weren't poor by no means, but if Billy wasn't gifted, there would have been no way for him to join that school in the first place. Trini asked Billy if he wants to join her, and he enthusiastically agreed, but if only they robbed from bad people. Trini agrees, and she knows just who to rob next. They saw a sign up in Ernie's Tavern saying there will be a martial arts competition by the end of the week. there would be a huge crowd and everyone would be too distracted by the fight. She would make a plan with Billy, and the night finally came. It was a packed house, and people were cheering and drinking. Billy would keep an eye out, make sure people wouldn't notice Trini. Trini sneaks around and sees two janitors, one big orc named Bulk, and a scrawny elf named Skull. They were the town's ruffians causing trouble wherever they went, but now they're two bumbling idiots who still act like they are teenagers with attitudes. Instead of doing their jobs, they are watching the fight, even trying to mimic the moves, but because they both weren't athletic, they are continuously hurting themselves. When the time was right, Trini snuck behind them and grabbed their coins and placed them in a small sack and returned to Billy, healing one of the fighters. The fighter woke up and introduced himself as Jason, and asked if they saw where his opponent went. They didn't, and Jason ran out of the tavern, and Trini and Billy followed. Bulk and Skull were about to order a drink, but they realized all their money was stolen. They looked around the tavern and saw an archer and hired her to find the thieves. She agreed and located the thieves running north. A guard from the Mastodon Guild saw everyone running out and followed. The archer fired a warning shot at their feet, and the knight tackled Jason. Trini located the archer thanks to Billy's flight spell, and tackled her to the ground, stealing her arrows. The archer revealed she was hired by Bulk and Skull, and now Trini feels embarrassed that Bulk and Skull, the town's idiots, noticed her stealing from them. It was then she realized she needed more training than she thought. Zack Taylor was raised in the Mastodon Guild, where he learned how to be a noble knight. He learned how to fight for his city and prepare for the inevitable arrival of the Dark Witch Rita Repulsa and her army of demon chimps and clay golems. Zack was a bit rebellious though. The role of a knight brings a lot of class and honor, and sure, Zack is not uncouth by any means, but his style of fighting is less like a noble knight and more like an overconfident bard. He combined dancing with martial arts, and his fellow knights feel only embarrassment whenever he starts dancing on the battlefield. Zack didn't care though. Fighting like this makes him feel unique, and less like a no-name drone like the rest of the guild. Zack is also a dwarf, and therefore he has to work extra hard to prove he's just as strong as a human or the orcs at the guild. And dancing on the field gives him that extra speed boost and agility he needs. Also, it catches his enemies off guard as well. He knows some of the younger crews watching him train, and they were in awe of his fighting style. So he started a class called Hip Hop Keto, at the dismay of his commander. He was told to stop teaching the recruits his ridiculous fighting techniques, and as a punishment, he was forced to guard Ernie's Tavern during what could be his busiest night yet, without pay. Ernie's Tavern hosts an annual martial arts competition every year, and this night could be the largest crowd he ever saw. Zack was standing guard at the entrance. He would periodically peek through the tavern to watch the fight, and wish he could go up and show off his own moves. After several hours passed by, Zack was standing in front of the door, looking up at the stars. Suddenly, three people ran out of the tavern: a man from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery, a gnome from the Triceratops Magic Academy, and a woman from the Sabertooth's Den. These people looked like they were chasing after someone, but Zack didn't notice anyone else leaving the tavern. They were running north, and a woman from the Pterodactyl Archery School, followed by a bulky orc and a scrawny, lanky elf, ran out of the tavern, following them. The orc said they were robbed, and hired the archer to find the criminals, and the elf just reiterates what the orc said. Zack said he will help, and ran off after the three people. He catches up to the group and sees an arrow being fired at their feet, and tackles the monk. The other two use a fly spell to locate the archer. The monk gets in a battle pose, and Zack starts dancing. With confusion on the monk's face, Zack, who was at the sides of the monk, immediately punches the monk below the belt. The monk fell to his knees, and Zack asked him to return what they stole, and struck the monk across the face. The monk said it was the girl who robbed Bulk and Skull, and Zack sees her giving the bag of coins back to the archer. He helped the monk back up and apologized for the dirty trick. The monk, wincing in pain, said it's no big deal, and asked Zack if he saw a man in green robes running out of the tavern. Zack answered saying the only people he saw ran out were them and the archer. Everyone looks confused, asking how is that even possible, and the wizard responded saying he could have used a teleportation spell. Then the monk replied back saying monks don't usually cast spells though. The rogue commented saying he might not be a monk, or at least not anymore. Kimberly Hart is your typical rich girl. She came from a wealthy family and a long line of archers. Her parents noticed her daughter was quite skilled with a bow and gymnastics, so they enrolled her in the Pterodactyl Archery School of Angel's Grove so she can hone in on her skills. But Kimberly saw through what was really happening. Her parents were distracting her from their divorce. They didn't mention their divorce to her, but the writing was on the walls. She and the rest of their family knew what was really happening. She lets out all of her frustration during her training, eventually being the best archer this school has ever seen. Whenever Angel's Grove is being attacked, she's usually the first archer the guards call to protect their city. While doing some independent training in the wilderness, she found a man practicing his spin kicks. She was enamored by him and introduced herself. The man introduced himself as Tommy Oliver, and his name sounded familiar to Kimberly. Then she realized this was the missing man from the Tyrannosaurus monastery. The man's face went from a dorky, innocent smile quickly to sheer unimaginable pain as he grabbed his head. He said he had to go and ran off, and Kimberly tried to follow, but it looked like the man just disappeared. A few days passed, and Kimberly was at Ernie's Tavern watching the annual martial arts competition. She sees a monk from the Tyrannosaurus monastery going up against a mysterious masked man in green robes. The announcer simply called him the Dragon, and the two started a brawl. The fighters were evenly matched, almost looked like the dragon was mirroring the monk's moves. Suddenly, the dragon did a spin kick, and this reminded Kimberly about the man she met in the woods. This couldn't be the same man, right? The monk was knocked unconscious, and Kimberly tried to follow the dragon out, but the crowd was too big. It looked like the dragon was walking out the back exit, but when Kimberly followed him out, he vanished again. She walked back in and was greeted by Bulk and Skull, the city's former bullies, now bumbling janitors. They asked if they could hire her to track down the people who stole from her. She agrees, just so they can quickly get away from her, and they point to the front door, saying they went that way. She ran out, running past a guard from the Mastodon Guild, and fired a warning shot at their feet, and ran for cover. She ran behind a building, hiding in the shadows. She peeks around a corner and sees the monk fighting the guard, and out of nowhere, she was tackled by a flying rogue and her wizard friend. Kimberly reaches for an arrow, but quickly finds out the rogue stole all of them, and was taunting her. The wizard asks why she was attacking them, and she answered by saying she was hired by Bulk and Skull. The rogue, in embarrassment, tosses a small bag of coins at Kimberly, but Kimberly throws the bag back at the rogue, saying she just wanted to look like she was doing her job. She really doesn't care what happens to the town's old bullies. Everyone introduced themselves to each other. Jason, the monk, Billy, the wizard, Trini, the rogue, Zack, the knight, and Kimberly, the archer. Jason catches everyone up to speed, and now they have a quest: find Tommy Oliver. But they will quickly be distracted by the return of the Dark Witch, Rita Repulsa. And there we have it, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as fantasy characters. And I really like how the art turned out for this video. And I knew this video was going to be long, so I decided to not do an intro for this, and just immediately start with the story. And I also really like how the story turned out. I tried to make it where all the lore kind of like connects to like one singular point where they met, which is of course a tavern, because, you know, because every D&D game starts in a tavern, right? That's the meme anyway. But yeah, I want to do something Power Rangers related, and I figured, well, why not start at the very beginning? But if I did that, then I really should be starting with Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger. But then I realized that's actually not really the beginning of it all. It should actually be Spider-Man, kind of, sort of. If you know the whole story behind that, and how Spider-Man basically created a Sentai, which created Power Rangers. I guess also created Kamen Rider too. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and hopefully this video gets enough likes so I can do a part 2 and draw Tommy Oliver and continue this storyline. Or if you guys want to see any more Power Rangers related thing that's not really fantasy related, like maybe turn Marvel characters into Power Rangers, DC characters into Power Rangers, turn Mighty Morphin Power Rangers into, I don't know, something else, let me know. It doesn't even have to be Mighty Morphin. I know the internet's kind of burned out on Mighty Morphin themed stuff now. But yeah, anyway, I think this intro's long enough, right? If you all enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next video. T-Rav signing out. See ya! I'm trying to speed through this outro because the video's super long. Bye!